There are many areas of our life, mine especially, where I just don't understand and I kind of just float through. In these weak spots, I tend to lean on people that I trust, the experts in their fields, since they know more and can help me fit in. One of these weak spots that I need help in is fashion, because my sense of fashion is weaker compared to the other average American, the average citizen, even. I still think really all you need is some comfortable clothes and a product in your hair, and you're really ready to go. But while my limited sense of what's hip and cool is probably not what many people think is hip or cool, I'm the kind of guy who just wears a t-shirt and jeans and a pair of sneakers. And usually these type of people aren't on the forefront of fashion and the latest trends. Trends in fashion are like storm fronts. They can move in quickly and jolt a lot of us that are unaware, unprepared. Some of these trends were stay acceptable for quite a long time, like the smoky eye for eyeliners, or the narrow or wide tie. While then others, on the other hand, come in, try to make a scene, and then disperse as quickly as they're brought forth. With the help of my fashion-forward wife, let's talk about some of the weirder fashion trends that tried to make a thing. One of the beauty and fashion trends that was brought forth by music icon Taylor Swift was the Sharpie eyeliner. So here's what happened. Apparently, Tay-Tay used a permanent marker as her eyeliner, regrettably, and all her fans, those Swifters, started doing this because she did it and made it a trend. Don't they know? Don't these silly little girls know Sharpies are not makeup? Then there's the trend of making your nails extra. Having your nails did is not new, not revolutionary, not even unusual. People go get manicures, pedicures, paint their fingertips. And it's something that a lot of women and a few men do to make themselves more beautiful. But trends are there for fingernails too, and there's one that tried to make the trend where you transform your fingernails into teeth. Yeah, teeth. Or adding a live ant in between two plastic press-on nails, so you can have a live ant walking around your fingertips. Odd is not the right word, but it's close enough. Fashion trends can be forced or unusual to us common folk, but let me remind you, these fashion-forward folks are not new. Throughout history, fashion and beauty has taken humanity to places that are new and sometimes unusual. Let's talk about the Incan people first. In an effort to promote beauty, they made their own shampoo to stop dandruff. Oh, wait, what shampoo? Let me tell you. Shampoo is a urine-based shampoo to help clean their hair. I'm pretty sure you just need to keep it out of your eyes. And then there's to help fight the battle with age. In Victorian times, women fully submerged themselves in arsenic so that they could get the pale white skin. Usually, when they did this, the bath gave them a glow. Or, on the other side of the world, in the Roman and Greek areas, to help fight the battle of wrinkles, they submerged themselves in a mixture of mud and crocodile poop to help restore their skin to their younger self, thinking that crocodile poop had restorative properties. Now, I hope you laughed as much as I did when I read these and found out about these fashion and beauty trends from days gone by. Because, well, they are laughable to us. But the constant is that beauty has always been sought out by every culture. We love beautiful people in our Western society. Each culture has done what they could do to make themselves more beautiful, to be more respected or idolized, from the Romans to the Greeks to the Persians, which is where we are in our study of Esther. Perfect timing. As we voyage into the second chapter of the book of Esther, we'll begin looking at the main character lots now, the Esther, where she comes on the scene due to circumstances that help us learn an important lesson, which is use the gifts God has given you. Use the gifts God has given you. Let's review a little bit first. Esther is going to the audition for the greatest talent search this side of America's Got Talent, all because her predecessor, Queen Vashti, refused to come to the king on command. Because of Vashti's denial from an order from the king, in front of all the nobility and all of the kingdom, punishment had to be handed out. Look at chapter 1, verses 17, 18, and 19. For the queen's behavior will be made known to all women, causing them to look with their husbands with contempt, since they will say, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, and she did not come. This very day, noble women of Persia, Media, who have heard of the queen's behavior, will say the same to all the king's officials, and there will be contempt and wrath in plenty. If it pleases the king, let a royal order go out from him, and let it be written among all the laws of Persia and Media and the Medes, so that it may not be repealed, that Vashti is never to become before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another, who is better than she. All right. As we talked about last time, Vashti is in this situation because she is a great example to us of standing up for what you feel is right. She stood by her convictions and dealt with the blowback of consequences. And that's a lesson for all of us, especially us as Christians, because we need to stand behind the teachings of the God, what the Bible says, and the values of our faith. Stand behind them, defend them, and not mix in our opinions or perspective on the level of what is true. Because of the stand that Vashti took, she was out, and a vacancy sign was slung over her bedroom door. It's time to find someone who is better than she. So let's find out. Chapter 2, verses 1 through 4, to see what God is teaching us about the need to use all the gifts that God has given each of us. Verse 1. After these things, when King Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's young men who attended him said, Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king. Let the king appoint officers in the province of his kingdom, and gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in the citadel, under custody of Hegai, the king's eunuch, who's in charge of the women. Let their cosmetics be given to them, and let young women who please the king be queen instead of Vashti. This pleased the king, so he did. There's some fun oddities in this section, because the first being the emotional state of the king after all these things that had happened with his wife, the embarrassment, the new law. 2:1 describes the King Xerxes as his anger has abated. But looking at the Hebrew of this, we can see that Xerxes he's not just upset. He's not angry. In fact, Xerxes was furious, because the Hebrew noun for anger is hema. And I'm not just saying that it's a good definition of this. This noun is mad. No. Definitely not saying that. Instead, it is defined as intense anger, wrath, fury, rage. So if Xerxes had his rage lessen, his fury abated, then this past experience, that one night with Vashti, really, really got him stirred up. But now he's thinking clearer. He's no longer letting his emotions cloud his thinking. It seems that he has remorse set into his life. And I know, we're not privileged to know how long had gone between chapter 1 and 2. I'm not willing to think it was right away, but we don't know. Nor are we told why he is feeling remorse. As in, was he missing Vashti the queen? Was he missing that person that he could be intimate with? Or was he just missing Vashti the person? Either way, Xerxes was no longer thinking of her denial, but of her herself and wanting Vashti back. And that's when Xerxes' underlings step in and try to control the situation. Let me read verses 2 and 3 again. Then the king's young men who attended him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king. Let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, and gather all beautiful young virgins to the harem in Susa the citadel under the custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch who's in charge of the women. Let their cosmetics be given to them." So, the thing that interests me the most is that the king's young men, these advisors that served the king and gave him advice on how to dispose of Vashti, how to save the king's pride one night so long ago. The king's emotional state was personal to them, just because they needed to keep the king happy, because it would save their lives. Let me explain. So let's just play it out. Let's say Xerxes is filled with remorse, somehow brings Vashti back, finds some loophole to make her queen again. What do you think her response would be? Especially towards these advisors, these servants of the king, these wise men who told her husband to get rid of her. Exile? Torture? Death? All three? I don't know. I'm sure it's possible. Keeping Vashti away from the king meant a longer life for them at the expense of Vashti. So, like a lot of lawyers and charlatans, they let their silver tongue get them out of trouble because they created the Persian dating game. Some type of weird beauty contest where every decent to above average virgin girl was to be brought from the entire empire to Susa for the chance to be queen. I know, there's probably one or two of you out there thinking, pretty sweet. This is a lot better than Miss Universe. But are you sure? Is this pretty sweet? Because the king's personal attendants had a proposal, as in search for the most beautiful virgin women in the kingdom. So from that pool, then the king can choose a new queen. Though this sounds an awful lot like what we think of as beauty contests now, it's not a very happy assignment for most of the women chosen. Chosen, like they had a choice. Because they were uprooted from their communities and brought to the Susa citadel, which implies confinement in the king's harem. As in, they were not free to go back home, to leave this contest. And for the runners-up, the women who did not become queen, well, perpetual widowhood. They're going to stay in the king's harem forever, never to be married, never to start their own family. Is this God's plan? Is it a touch shallow for us to be focusing on so much about the physical appearance and beauty? The things that are only skin deep? Yeah. But maybe no. It is shallow to view people only by beauty. Something that's temporary. something that will not last. Let's not forget, a wise man once told me, beauty is only skin deep, but ugly can be to the core. On the other hand, though, we should not ignore the beauty that God created us with. Each one of us has been made in the image of God, made in his likeness. We can see from the creation accounts. God made us who we are, talented and gifted with those gifts for a reason. The color of our skin, the color of our eyes, our gender, our abilities, all the rest that defines us were chosen for us by the Almighty God for a reason. We should not guess why we have brown hair, why we can throw a ball well, or even have the ability for hospitality, whatever. While I'm not saying that we should hide our gifts or the beauty of our appearance, but we shouldn't go to the other extreme either, where we abuse our beauty or talents. We manipulate people so that we can think that we're just a pretty face or a strong arm. We're not, no. It's a fine line to walk right in the middle of both of these things. But for Esther, she walks that fine line very well. She is summoned to the citadel in Susa because of her beauty. But she doesn't abuse this gift from God, but uses it to open doors, help other people, because she's as beautiful as she is smart. We need to do the same with our gifts, our talent. Everything about us, from our physical appearance, our health, our talent, our abilities, our mind, our spiritual gifts, are from God. We use these things, for some, nearly every day. Some, even more than that. We should not be afraid to let our talents open doors for us to share with others about God and our relationship with Him. After all, that's what two Jewish folk did in the midst of a nationwide queen search and, well, makeup challenge. Let's talk about Esther and Mordecai in verses 5 through 9 of chapter 2. Now there was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, son of Yair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives, carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. He was bringing up Hadassah, that is Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither family nor mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Susa, the citadel, under the custody of Haggai, Esther was also taken into the king's palace and put in the custody of Haggai, who was in charge of the women. The young woman pleased him, won his favor, and he quickly provided her with cosmetics and her portion of food, and with 7 chosen young women from the king's palace, and advanced her and her young woman to the best place in the harem. So, let's get some background on these two main characters, because Esther and Mordecai are key. Let's talk Mordecai first, because as verse 5 tells us, he's Jewish. He's from the tribe of Benjamin. He was a Kish. His dad's name was Yair. Mordecai and Esther are second-generation Jews, as in they were born in captivity, not likely from the homeland. The wording used to describe Mordecai and his family is the pronouns used to describe him in verses 5 and 6, as in when he was taken away from Jerusalem, fit more with his heritage than him as a person, as in his family was taken away from Jerusalem, from the homeland, not Mordecai. We see Mordecai, I see Mordecai, I always have, as this older, wiser, responsible cousin, protector of Esther. In all reality, age-wise, Mordecai couldn't have been more than 30. Where some think maybe he's around 10 years older max. But one more interesting thing that makes us believe that Mordecai was born in exile, in captivity, and not part of the people, not born in Israel like so many were, is that we're only given his name as Mordecai. Big M is a Babylonian name because Mordecai is named from Marduk, which is one of the Babylonian idols, and the author doesn't share a Hebrew name. We do for Esther. The relationship between these two family members that were forced to be parent and child instead of cousin to cousin due to tragedy of Esther's parents in the exile of Israel. We can't underestimate the importance of Mordecai in his relationship with Esther. He's important to this story and to history. Yeah, he plays the role of the wise sage, the father figure, the moral compass, the person who's there to keep reminding of who God is for Esther throughout the story. There's going to be plenty of time in the upcoming chapters where Esther needs Mordecai, her cousin, her father figure, the helper. We all need adults in our life who can point us, and sometimes repoint us back to God and helping us on our spiritual walk. But let's mention Esther too. The thoughts are that Hadassah, her Jewish name, and Esther, her Babylonian name, the name we will refer to her as, was a young woman between adolescence and her early 20s. She's young, very young, but was a prime candidate to be culled in this nationwide beauty contest because, well, as we just read, she was pretty. Verse 7 tells us that Esther had a beautiful figure and a lovely appearance. So what does that mean in reality? The descriptive nature of Esther here is focusing on her legendary beauty. So this type of description has only been given to Rachel in Genesis 29. These two women are tops. But is it important for us to know that Esther had a beautiful figure and would probably slay in a cocktail dress? Or that she would make the heartbeat of everyone around her faster when she wore a sundress? Or people walk up to her and yell, "Ding dong!" over her appearance, even without makeup? Yeah, she probably would. It's important to know that she does have this legendary beauty, this type of beauty which will take the heart, mind, and soul of the king and make her queen of an empire. But knowing that the age range of Esther, it does make me feel a little bit uncomfortable to discuss the body and appearance of a teenage girl or younger. It's important, but it is important for the single aspect that God made her this way. Beauty is a gift from God. And in this case, it was a gift used by God for the good of his people. So, if beauty is a gift from God, does that mean we're given a free pass to ogle all the ladies of Hot Girl Summer? Absolutely not. We need to understand that this passage doesn't give us a right to view women or men as pieces of meat, to praise specific body parts in lust, if you get me. But on the other hand, it does not give us an excuse to abuse our beauties, our bodies, to get what we want. There's a middle ground where we need to be proud of the gifts that God gave us, like our bodies, and the natural beauty of them, but not abusing them to get things. And the same way can be applied to any of the talents, gifts that God has made us with. All of them. From teaching or preaching to singing to organization to our strength are chosen for us by God, by the Creator, to serve the church and bring God glory. And as we see in verses 8 and 9, because of Esther's great beauty, the godly gift that she is using to do God's will, she is not automatically given queenship. Granted, instead, Haggai notices her beauty and puts her through in the middle of this beauty boot camp. Helps her on her way and provides a better place in the harem and help. And we'll find out more about this help that Haggai gives Esther next week. But for now, let's understand we are each talented and gifted in many ways. Some are obvious to us, others not so much. But no matter the talent, the gift, the skill, even the job, we need to recognize how we are gifted, grow, and develop those gifts so that they can be used to bring God glory. While Esther may have an amazingly beautiful, a thing of legend, she still had to use that gift that God gave her to allow others to help her grow and be better. The same can be said to us. How are you spiritually gifted? What are you skilled and talented in? Are you willing to use any and all those gifts from God to serve the church? Or are you going to be a Candace Whitcomb? Whitcomb is a character from Mary Wilkins Freeman 1889 short story, The Village Singer. The story goes like this. Miss Whitcomb was dismissed after 40 years of being the church's lead soprano. Her voice began to crack, and those upper notes weren't as strong as they used to be. So, the church officers asked her to step down. As you can expect, Miss Whitcomb was not happy. So the following Sunday morning, which was a warm summer morning, and the windows of the church being opened, she got her revenge. Her house sat next door to the church, and just as her replacement, the young Alma Way, began her solo, old Miss Whitcomb, sitting at home, began to pound away on her organ, and while loudly cawing another hymn to another tune. Poor Alma tried to sing, but all anybody could hear was Candace's shrill stains from next door. Sometimes we're like Candace in that we think we know what we're good at, and we think we know how we should serve the gift, God and His church. Some could say that, well, I'm pretty decent on a guitar, I should be leading the worship band. Or, I know how to do math. Put me in charge of the budget next year. Whew, no. But we ignore the other areas in our life that we're gifted at, maybe even more strongly. Because how many times have I even heard, I'd love to help out in youth group, in children, with the kingdom kids. I'm just no good with kids. Or, I would take that shut in a meal, but I'm sure my cooking would probably make them sicker. Okay. Those are just excuses that we do to put off hiding the gifts that we are willing to, don't want to serve with, that we are gifted with, but just don't want to serve. We cannot pick and choose what we want our spiritual gifts to be. If that were the case, I'd make mine musical, and I'd challenge Michael Hapner for Battle of the Bands for Grace Bible Church. But I can't. But instead, we need to be willing to use all of ourselves. wherever the need comes, as long as doing so points others to a growing relationship with God. Even if our gifts is just a pretty face in the right time and right place. See ya.